No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Hey everyone, welcome to News to Astonish, where we discuss comics, movies, games, and more. And today I got some really good news and more or less bitter news, if you want to call it that. And it's regarding the Spider-Verse thing going on at Sony and the whole Tom Holland thing and Venom thing being with Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, I got some news here, and I quote, following comments from Spider-Man Homecoming producer Amy Pascal, the prospect of a potential Spider-Man spin-offs continues to get out as new details about what Sony has been planning have come to light. In a story regarding Sony's partnership with Marvel Studios, The Hollywood Reporter brings word on other things being planned for Sony's Marvel Universe. The outlet reveals that the upcoming Venom film, which has director Ruben Fleischer behind the camera and Tom Hardy playing the titular anti-hero, will see none other than Carnage as its antagonist. Venom will arrive in theaters on October 5th, 2018. In addition, the studio is reportedly considering plans for projects that will focus on villains Kraven the Hunter and Mysterio. Whether this will be films for the individual villains or something pairing them up remains to be seen. Sony also intends to bring the web-slinger himself, Tom Holland, into various spin-off films and additional Marvel Studio movies, despite him only being contractually obligated to appear in Spider-Man 2 and 3. Finally, THR reveals that the already planned sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming will see another Marvel Studios character paired up with the web-slinger, much like Iron Man will be in Homecoming. Which character will that be? Like Spider-Man himself is still up in the air. The sequel is already set for July 5th, 2019. So, with that being said, we seem to have gotten a lot of information from this quote from The Hollywood Reporter. Let's begin with the first obvious and probably the most exciting part of this report here. We're going to be getting a Venom movie, but the most exciting part about this is that Carnage is going to be the main antagonist for that film. And that's really exciting, honestly, and it's great that we're going to be getting a, I guess, an interpretation of Carnage somewhat in the MCU/Sony Spider-Verse. However, I still think a Venom film is, I'm partially excited and I'm partially, a little disappointed. Personally, I don't believe Venom should have his own movie. I think you can get a really good story in itself in a Spider-Man film with the Venom symbiote if enough time is dedicated to him and his character and the character of Eddie Brock in a Spider-Man film. If not, have a set of Spider-Man sequels where we build up by first getting introduced to the black suit or, the symbiote, and Spider-Man finds it and he wears it in one of the films, and then the following sequel, the symbiote makes contact with Eddie Brock, or at the end of one of the Spider-Man sequels, the symbiote would make contact with Eddie Brock, and then it cuts off from there, and then we're introduced to Venom as the main antagonist as one of the other sequels. If not, have Venom be introduced in one of the Infinity War films, not Venom itself. What I mean is have the symbiote be introduced as one of subplots in one of the Infinity War films. I know that the symbiote didn't make its appearance in Infinity War in the comics, but it made its appearance in Secret Wars. But I doubt we're going to be getting a Secret Wars films anytime soon. But yeah, the way they're handling Venom is kind of up in the air. I mean, Sony has been quite hasty lately, and they seem to be way in and out of their heads when it comes to making, decisions like this. I appreciate, Sony showing compassion for its character, which is Spider-Man, because Spider-Man still belongs to Sony, and Sony distributes the character and they own the rights to the character. However, just making very hasty decisions like this, it's making them seem way in and out of their head. I mean, just a few months ago, maybe last year, Sony has decided to branch out into the Spider-Verse and make it only dedicated to Sony only. It wasn't gonna have any connections to the MCU, but now we're getting news like this where apparently they're going to be continuing doing the Spider-Verse, and there is going to be connections to the MCU. As far as Spider-Man's rogue gallery goes, I don't think the villains themselves should have their own films. I mean, you can get a good story or a good backstory of the villains in a Spider-Man sequel. It's been proven many times before already. I mean, look at the Spider-Man Sam Raimi films. Green Goblin, we got a story in that, and that's a Spider-Man film. Dr. Octopus, we got a story in that, and that's also a Spider-Man solo film. Now, say what you will about the third film, it's not exactly the best film, but we were able to get a story and perhaps a understanding of the character of the Sandman. As far as Venom in that film, it was very disappointing. really didn't care about him. We thought of him as pathetic, and I don't really blame the actor, but I really blame, you know, the writing of the film, because initially Sam Raimi didn't want Venom as one of the antagonists in the film, and I think that movie was convoluted with a bunch of villains. They had already had 3 villains, and it was ridiculous. I thought that maybe Venom would have been best to be saved for another movie, but the fans wanted it, and Sony gave it to them, but it was like a half-assed backstory of Venom, if you could call it a backstory. But hopefully hopefully Sony has learned their lessons and they give us a good story on Venom, because that character is one of the most popular and most favorited anti-heroes slash villains of all time. Personally, he's one of my favorite, if not, I think my favorite Spider-Man villain of all time. He's an anti-hero, I get it, but like, you know, he's been mostly a villain to Spider-Man for as long as I've known the character of Spider-Man and Venom. But I really hope that this property is treated well, and I hope Sony knows what they're doing. But still, back to the whole decision making, and Sony needs to really, you know, take a step back and just think about what they're doing, because they don't seem to know what they're doing. I mean, they're just like keeping themselves kind of like afloat, where like they make this they make a decision thinking that it's a good one, and then I guess they hear backlash and they go like, okay, you know what, never mind, forget, just throw away what we just said, and we're gonna go ahead and join Marvel, but still, you know, continue on with our Spider-Verse. And I'm like, yeah, you know, Sony, maybe cut the villain solo films, don't do it, include new villains that we haven't seen before, like Mysterio and Kraven, and put them in the Spider-Man sequels. And I'm pretty sure with good writing, you can get a good backstory in a Spider-Man solo film. Now, speaking of Spider-Man solo films, how do I feel about Spider-Man having another superhero join Spider-Man? It's kind of like a mixed bag of emotions for me. Now, you can go ahead and counter-argue that and say, well, you know, Ron, I mean, there's already been 5 solo Spider-Man movies with no other superhero appearances. Wouldn't you want to see kind of like a collaboration between Spider-Man and another superhero, let's say? I'm like, yes, I do. And we're getting that with Spider-Man Homecoming. You know, Iron Man's going to be featured in the film. Now, as far as what I think would be a really good pair-up team for another Spider-Man movie, I would love to see Spider-Man and the Ant-Man team up in a future Spider-Man film, and I would love to see Spider-Man and the Human Torch team up. I think those guys would be great as a team up. I've always wanted to see that, because the chemistry especially between Spider-Man and the Human Torch is pretty funny. I mean, those two are funny guys, and they're pranksters, especially the Human Torch. He's a major prankster. I would also love to see a Spider-Man Deadpool movie. I think it would be great, but I don't know if that's going to be happening anytime soon, and I highly doubt it, because, you know, Fox owns the rights to Deadpool and the X-Men franchise as we know it. What I'm really excited about is that we're going to be getting an interpretation finally of Carnage, and that's been long overdue, and I think fans have been clamoring for that moment ever since the introduction of Venom in the 2007 Sam Raimi Spider-Man film. And that's great to hear. And it's great to hear that Sony has decided to have its Spider-Verse connected with the MCU, however adjacent to the MCU, so it can take place in different locations where like the MCU character rosters have no idea what's going on with that. So it's kind of gonna be its own thing, but at the same time, the connection and the references is gonna be there. But yeah, it's pretty exciting news. I'm excited for Carnage. A little bit. I have like a bit of mixed feelings for the whole superhero team up. I love superhero team ups, don't get me wrong, but I really want the Spider-Man sequels to be Spider-Man centric and focused on Spider-Man. I mean, I don't mind the supporting superhero taking the spotlight and everything, but remember, these are Spider-Man films and they need to focus on them. And it's one of the major concerns as fans and as an audience. We do have for the Spider-Man Homecoming film that's coming up, people are concerned that Iron Man's going to be taking a lot of the spotlight, or we're going to be seeing tons of Iron Man, and it's going to show that Spider-Man is just incapable of being a hero on his own, and having to rely on Iron Man is something that's probably going to like turn off a bit of people and, you know, turn off fans overall. But remember, this is the first Spider-Man MCU film, and this is a a story about a kid coming of age and learning how to take responsibility and just pretty much overall learning how to become a hero. And I think it's going to be going in the right direction with Spider-Man Homecoming. But I really hope the character itself, Spider-Man in the MCU, gets to grow and eventually starts fighting on his own and not having to rely on any other superheroes. So that's my take on it. I still remain excited for Spider-Man Homecoming. I am so happy that Spider-Man is in the MCU. I'm happy that Carnage is going to be making an appearance in the solo Venom film that's coming out next year in 2018. I do have mixed feelings about the whole superhero team up in every single Spider-Man sequel, but we'll see how Marvel decides to handle that. Nonetheless, I'm feeling joyful, and I got mixed bag feelings again. Yeah, I kind of felt like that when I was reading these news reports. But yeah, that's my intake, and I hope you guys enjoyed this news segment. I haven't really done a news segment like this, and especially this long. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tell me what else should I cover, and what are your thoughts about this whole Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Homecoming, Venom, Carnage news, and Spider-Man team-ups and stuff like that. Let me know in the comment section below. Hit that like button if you like this video. Follow me on social media and subscribe for more, and I'll see you all in the next comic panel.